mortgages.
Fantastic. That it? That's it? Well, I'd say that as far as you guys are concerned, unless I earn your trust, I'm just some guy, okay? So just take stock on what we can learn together. I run a company called Creative TC. That's transaction consultants for you realtors. Don't look down on me as a coordinator. I know you do. We do transaction coordination, but we do creative-only deals, okay? So that means I see a lot of sub-2, wraparound mortgages, contract for deed, and if you didn't get the update about the Kansas Contract for Deed Act, I posted a video going into detail about that. That can cost you $20,000 to $25,000 for doing it the wrong way because Kansas now finds it unconscionable, according to the Consumer Protection Act, to do certain things or to do it the wrong way. I work with investors who sometimes will purchase on a contract for deed, for example. Now that's a form of seller finance where it's basically like a lease to own with a car, okay? That's the simplest way I can put it. You don't get the title until you finish paying it off. I work with investors who sometimes use that as an acquisition strategy. They'll mark up the interest rate and then sell it on a contract for deed because they wrote into the original, well, I wrote into their original contract that they have permission to also subsequently sell on that contract for deed. It's a fantastic strategy. It's a type of wraparound mortgage in effect, and it's a great way to make a couple $100 a month. I've seen people make $1,200 was the most extreme case, $1,200 a month on a markup from a 2-point-something% interest up to a 9.5 on a pretty big balance. And that's a lot of markup. That's called our interest rate arbitrage. Feel free to ask questions. I love getting interrupted. Honestly, I would rather make sure I cater to whatever information you guys are looking for. But that strategy of doing wraparound contract for deed, you can't do that in Kansas. What, as of June? Do you know the date when that goes into effect? You were nodding, so I feel like you're up to date. Yeah.
The only thing I know is I thought if you disclosed everything, you could still possibly do it, but I don't know what the dates are.
One of the
I don't do contract for deed.
Fair enough. One of the provisions it had in there was that you had to have fee simple title to the property. That means if I'm the investor buyer on a contract for deed, I don't have fee simple title until I finish paying it off and they give me the warranty deed. Even if they pre-sign a warranty deed and place it with my loan servicer or something like that, in Kansas, I cannot then subsequently sell on contract for deed unless that's also true. If that looked like a total nerd moment for you, like, I don't care about that, you know a guy who does. That's my job. That's what I do, okay? And my job, my biggest skill is asking good questions. So when you bring me a non-standard deal, I'm going to grill you and ask a lot of questions, and you're not going to have the answers, and that's okay. We're going to work through it together. That's the reason I exist. So wraparound mortgages. Oh yeah, here's stuff about me. Take a screenshot if you want. I've got a bachelor's in cybersecurity and risk management, and so that kind of ties into I care about your deal. I care about doing the deal the right way. I've been a buyer, seller, refinancer. I've done wholesaling. I've done my own cold calling, driving for deals. I've worked for other wholesalers as a lead manager. I wrote an underwriting calculator for creative finance deals. Hundreds of people use that every day. I've got a lot of under the surface experience that a lot of people just don't know about me. We run 50 plus creative transactions a month at Creative TC nationwide. I only don't touch New York and New Jersey. They just drive me insane with all their attorneys on both sides, etc. By the way, I'm not an attorney or a CPA or a licensed real estate agent or any of that stuff. I like being free, a free agent. I'm just, I don't have any licensure at stake. I'm a consultant, okay? I've got lots of opinions, but they're not legal advice. Now, here are the main takeaways today I want you to come away with. Wraps provide security. For who? That's a good question. They provide security for various people. Depends on your reasoning. Depends on your deal. Okay, they provide security. There are multiple ways to wrap. I also gave an example, the contract for deed and a wraparound contract for deed. That's one method. You can also do a seller finance contract for deed where you do give the deed and title to the property transfers at close of escrow. There are multiple ways to do it. And to top it off or bottom it out, you know a guy. Okay, so when you think wraps, when you think creative finance, call Caleb. I will have a lot of stuff you had never thought about. You can, if you like QR codes, this has my email, my phone, my website. I do a lot of stuff on YouTube, a lot of stuff on Instagram. We're pumping a lot of content, and if you follow me on Instagram or YouTube, I promise you will get value when it comes to real estate, doing deals the right way, avoiding doing deals the wrong way, all that stuff. And I'll show that one more time toward the end. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Here we go. All right, so let's talk about what is a wraparound mortgage. It is a new mortgage. Who's in Kansas? Okay, you guys have mortgages. I'm in Kansas too. Who's Missouri? You guys have deeds of trust. I'm going to use those interchangeably. I'm going to say mortgage for the most part today, but I mean either mortgage or deed of trust, the security instrument for the debt. When you buy something with borrowed money, you sign a promissory note, and it's paired with a security instrument. Whether that's a mortgage or deed of trust depends on what state you're in. Wraparound mortgage or an all-inclusive trust deed is another word for it. AITD, is that up here? No, we'll get to that. It is a new mortgage. So if I have a bank loan for $250,000 and I want to sell my property on seller finance for $300,000, I can sell with a $50,000 down payment, and that brings my buyer's balance down to what? Well, if I sell at $300,000 minus a $50,000 down payment, $250,000. So my mortgage is $250,000, and their wraparound mortgage to me is $250,000. Same balance, but guess what? I can have the same interest rate or a different interest rate. So if I've got a 3% mortgage, I can sell my house on wraparound financing. I become the private bank. It doesn't get rid of the original mortgage. And I mark up my interest rate to, say, 7%, because that's a fair rate for somebody who's looking for a mortgage today. Well, guess what? That's a 4% markup. How much money do I make every month on 4% a rate on a $250,000 mortgage? Not $1,000. It should be several $100s. I should have run the math. I'm ad-libbing. But yeah, somewhere $300 to $600, something like that. If somebody wants to run the math, you can. But what's the interest rate? If you had a $250,000 mortgage at 30 years at 4% interest, how much is the interest part of that payment? And that's what I'm making. Because I still have to pay my bank my 3% interest mortgage. Now, nobody buys and sells on the next month. Like, my mortgage is probably 2 or 3, 4, 5 years old by the time I go to do that. Now, as an investor, I can buy subject to somebody else's mortgage and then find a family who is, quote unquote, unbankable, doesn't fit the long-term financing model, they won't fit your risk model. I should still underwrite those people and make sure that they can pay. But there are plenty of people who, I don't have a W-2. I run this company. It's harder, not impossible, it's harder for me to get regular bank financing. And so if I had a nest egg and I saw somebody listing a house for sale on seller finance at a 6 or 7% rate, hey, that seems like a fair offer. Maybe I'll go do that. And that's where investors can make money with wraparound mortgages.
Do you think it's like $800?
I think it's kind of high. Well, here, you know what? I'll show you my fancy calculator.
833. That's what I came up with.
How much?
833.
That's the monthly payment or the interest payment?
That's the difference between 3 and 7% on $250,000.
Okay. If you ran the math.
F and I made it.
10
Come on,
grand a
that's a
year
spread.
divided by 12, right?
I don't know.
250 on an RV.
I'm live on stage. You're grilling me. I'm live on stage. Come on. Here, let's.
Yeah, that's the APR. I don't know if you're running it through a 30-year mortgage, it would be different, but that's a flat APR.
Right. So here, let's do this. Let's do 250 let's get rid of this down payment at 4%. The difference is 4% interest, right? Between 3 and 7. So as much interest as fits in 4%, the monthly payment, there you go. Interest is $833. That's an $833 markup. That's fantastic money for finding somebody who has that has that 3% mortgage. Your low interest mortgage, learn to say this phrase, your low interest mortgage is an asset that I want to buy.
Right.
That's what I do on Creative Finance. Now, Caleb, Christopher, physically, I facilitate other people's transactions. I do one every once in a while, but I've got a team of 14 people and we crank other people's transactions, 50 plus deals a month, all across the country doing exactly this sort of stuff. This is my seller finance calculator that we use to run the difference, cash flow analysis, etc. Let's see if this picks up where I think it should. No?
That's better than most people's cash flow in their rent.
I know, you find one. Now, there is a risk with sub 2. We can get into all the risks of sub 2 being called due on sale, etc. I have a due on sale remediation service as well. I've solved that problem for people before. You're not due on sale proof. Oh, good, here we go. We're back to live. Okay. Now, one other thing is with the wraparound mortgage, one payment for your buyer, like a family that wants to move in as owner-occupants, one payment can be split to multiple payees. So if you've got a JV partner, you can hire a third-party servicer. That homeowner buys and pays $2,500 PITI on the wraparound. You subtract what you owe, let's call it $1,800, to the underlying debt, and you keep the difference. Well, you have that to split with your partners, and the third-party loan servicer can keep track of the payments, can split out payments, and give direct deposit to you every month. They can send late notices, etc. So you can just go really passive with this. The one caveat, and I'm sure I've got slides, but I'm on a roll. The one caveat with this is that you have to be aware when you buy subject to existing debt that there is a risk of due on sale. And so it is completely irresponsible as an investor to do one of these deals with $0 in your bank account. Is it possible to accomplish that? Yes. It's irresponsible, though, if you cannot afford to carry some monthly mortgage payments if your borrower defaults, especially if you bought it subject to a loan that's still in somebody else's name. And here's a hashtag. Sub 2 responsibly. If you're doing subject to deals, there's an ethical and responsible way to do it, and that's what I care about. And I turn down clients who want to get shady. Okay? Any questions on what is a wraparound mortgage?
Who carries the
Whoever has the insurable interest, which is whoever holds title. So if you sold it on a contract for deed, for example, you'll get different answers from different insurance agents, but usually when you escalate to an underwriter, they'll give the same answer, that the person who holds title, which if I sold to you on a contract for deed or a land contract in mortgage states, then I still hold legal title, and I need to get a landlord policy to cover the dwelling. And you as the no, you don't want to call a person a tenant or you'll lose the sale. You as the buyer, the owner-occupant person, you would get a contents policy. I don't call it a renter's policy because they feel it's degrading. I'm a homeowner now. So you have, it's a battle of terminology here. Yeah. Contents insurance, dwelling insurance, contents insurance. So in a contract for deed, I hold a landlord policy, they get a renter policy. They pay for both. I put that in the contract for deed, the sale contract, etc. Good question. Others?
I have a small question, and that maybe perhaps you would like to answer later on. Say, for example, the seller doesn't pay the mortgage. The notices are coming to the seller from the mortgage company.
Oh, yeah, technicalities.
Technicalities.
Yeah.
So essentially now the seller is not paying the mortgage, I am paying it to the seller or whosoever I purchased it from. Essentially, the house goes in foreclosure for XYZ reason. Do I get something out of it or I've lost everything?
It's a risky situation. So he said, what if I pay the seller and the seller doesn't pay their mortgage, assuming this is a sub 2? And let's make the difference. Sub 2 is not an assumption. That's a formal process of replacing who's the name of the borrower on the loan. So if I bought a house either as a naked sub 2 where I just take title and promise to pay their mortgage, which there's a use case for that, but it's not the responsible way to do things, or I buy it on a wraparound, I make payments to them and they don't pay the bank, what happens? Well, yes, the house can go into foreclosure. I'm not going to trust some random seller who's the uneducated, non-professional real estate person to make that payment. I'm not going to Venmo him $1,800 and expect him to make that payment. No way. One of the processes and pieces of paperwork that we have on deck is a power of attorney that gives me specific power to connect with and manage the mortgage account, insurance, etc. Anything related to that property in their name, I can do. Now, I can coach you along on how to use a power of attorney correctly, but we're going to get power of attorney so that we can control those accounts. I'm going to get the login to his mortgage, and I'm going to set up ACH payments. I've got a deal in maybe I should tell you about this one. I closed the deal in December in Colorado, Pueblo. These people, they had a second house. They were making 2 mortgage payments. They needed help because they tried selling on the MLS. I'm in creative finance because it helps people. I love the story. I'm all about the story. Now, these people can't make 2 mortgage payments. They just had a baby. They live an hour away from the house. They don't want to be landlords. They've tried to sell it on the MLS, so their realtor, the market failed them. I'm not going to say the realtor did because I think it was priced right, but obviously the market's not ready to spend that much money. They owed $213,000. They were ready to break even, maybe lose a few $1,000s after the sale. Still nobody buying. Somebody calls me and says, can you help these people? I ran the numbers on that little calculator I had. I said, you guys, this loses money. It's not a good investment. That's why nobody's buying it, obviously. I'm not telling you anything new. But my math, and I run conservative, my math shows me losing $200 a month if I turn this into a rental. So you probably don't want to hear this, but you're far enough along, maybe this is the only option. If you pay me $200 a month, I'll take the house off your hands and I'll turn it into a rental. I've got good credit. I've had renters miss payments. I have never missed a mortgage payment. I will make sure your mortgage gets paid. And the problem was they couldn't make their payments. And if they've had a short sale or a foreclosure or any of those negative reflections on their credit, the wife was working in financial services and she says she would lose her job or it would be imperiled by that situation. So that's a deal breaker. She cannot let that happen. And I said, if you guys pay me $200 a month for 2 years until I can raise rents, I'll take it off your hands. There's a 3.25% interest mortgage. They called me back 2 days later and said, we'll take that deal. And they gave me a check for $6,054 for a flooring insurance claim at closing, and they have paid me 4 months in a row now, $200 every month. And I carried the cost for a couple of months while I tried to get it sold on a wraparound mortgage. The market was still bad. They already proved that, and I tried on seller finance to see if I could get it. Still didn't work, so I put renters in there. Mortgage payment's $1,206. I have it rented for $1,450, and they're paying me $200 on top. I thought it was going to rent for $1,350, but I listed it at $1,450 to see what the interest was. That's a deal for them, and they're spending money. They're paying me to take over their house. So Creative Finance can solve problems, and that was a prime candidate for a wraparound mortgage. You guys understand how to make money doing that stuff? Because I could have sold it at a higher interest rate. I could have sold it at a higher price. Increase the mortgage balance. Some markets that works really well. Pueblo, Colorado, I don't recommend you go too hard on that one. Yes.
Just kind of not correct. I mean, just from my understanding, a wraparound mortgage requires that I have a promissory note signed up with the seller.
Yeah.
Essentially, I do not go about putting my name with the mortgagee or mortgager. So essentially, it is that my kind of a complete dealing is much with the seller with whom I am trying to sign up a promissory note. And further upon, he continues to make the payments. That's the only way I'm going to pay him a little bit additional on the mortgage price he is paying. Is that not right?
You will sign a promissory note and mortgage in favor of the seller.
Right.
And he still has his mortgage with the bank.
Right.
Correct.
So
However, I will not let him be the one that makes the payments to the bank. I will either make it directly or I will set up a third-party loan servicer so my payments go to the servicer and I trust them to make payments. And we can provide statements and proof that we're making payments to him, but he does not control that account. We have penalties for him messing with it, and there's still the risk of due on sale. So you have to be able, remember, you can't do one of these deals. You should not do one of these deals with $0 in your bank account. You have to be able to carry some debt or some monthly payments in case you have a problem with your borrower, etc.
I'll have to set up a time with you to talk a little bit.
Absolutely. Remember my contact info? It's right there. So,
There
okay.
are a lot of good gray areas in there.
There's a ton of gray areas.
Yeah.
That's what I'm telling you.
How do you charge for your services?
So so you can book a free call anytime with my team at creativetc.io. I've got 2 sales specialists, consultants, whatever you want to call them. They'll take a call even in the evenings, okay? If you have any creative finance questions, come get your free questions asked. Then they'll latch onto your leg and follow you around trying to get a sale. But get your free answers real quick. We have consults, like paid consults starting at $200. Our regular transaction management, because it's really project management, we start at $2,000. We've done due on sale remediation. We can assist with trust. Most of our business is in Florida, Texas, Colorado, California, and Tennessee right now. That's where we're focused. Not focused, that's where the most is coming in.
Remediation.
Yeah, due on sale remediation. So the risk of due on sale is when you transfer title to somebody else, or even on contract for deed for certain loans, and if the bank notices, number one, and if they care, number two, they have the option, not the obligation, the option to accelerate that mortgage. When that happens, they're going to send a notice. Hey, we noticed the deed changed. I've got a whole folder of examples. And you want me to pull it up? I'll show you. He didn't say yes. I'm just moving forward.
How often does it happen that they exercise?
Man, it does not happen very often at all. It's you know how pigs kill more people than sharks per year? It's kind of like that. Due on sale is like that, okay? Due on sale is the shark. There's way more bigger problems that cause problems for people on the regular.
Except the trade liability still stands with the original owner, correct?
The what liability?
Except the trade liability then stays with the original owner.
The trade liability?
The credit.
Oh yeah, their credit is still on the line, absolutely. And that's why I say, well, I haven't said this to you guys yet. Creative finance, buying subject to the mortgage is not a primary strategy. You don't start with that. That's a fallback. Okay? It's a fallback strategy. And I'll say this time and again, you try cash deal, you try realtor, and you try keeping it. After you've tried those three, if they don't work and the person still wants or needs to sell, now you've got a creative deal on your hands. But if somebody calls me for like a JV close, like, hey, they're a wholesaler and they're like, I've got this deal and I think it's a great sub-2 deal. I'm going to ask, did you go through cash realtor and keeping it? Because I will destroy your deal to disqualify those three things right off the bat if you put me on the phone with that seller. I'm going to ask them, I'm going to grill them why the cash offer didn't work. Well, in a sub-2 deal, most of the time, the loan is worth more than, or the loan balance is higher than the cash offer. Doesn't work. We know that, but the seller has to tell me that. So the cash is out the window. But the seller's the one that told me. I didn't just jump to that conclusion. Number two, why don't you sell it on the market? What's wrong with a realtor? Maybe it won't pass inspection. Maybe their realtor sucks. Maybe they hate realtors. Maybe they can't afford the fees. Whatever the reason is, as long as they have a reason, cool. Next option. Why don't you keep it? You don't like fixing toilets? I'll seed I'll seed that into there. You don't want to be a landlord? And that's what I did with these people in Colorado. I said, you already own the house. It should rent for more than your mortgage payment. Why don't you do that? And they gave me an answer. It's an hour away. I don't want to be a landlord. I've got a 1-year-old kid. We just had another baby, whatever their answer was. So they had a good reason why all three don't work. Well, now creative is the only option. And Doug, stand up real quick. It's more of a request than a command.
All right. Yes, sir.
But if you and I are negotiating, I'm trying to make offers, you're trying to like not show your cards and stuff like that. But when I disqualify cash realtor and keeping it, creative's the only option left. And I get to switch from across the table from Doug to Doug. Now, let's look at what options are remaining. That's why I like creative finance. It's a total transformation in the conversation. And so why would somebody leave their credit on the line? Because I'm helping them. Because it's the least bad option or it's the best option. That's why. That's all. Thank you. Mm-hmm. You see why creative finance works some of these times.
Have you been paid?
He has not been paid.
Yes.
Oh, well, you did use my image.
Oh, stink. Okay, I have redacted these appropriately, but this is it's coming from an attorney's office, which tells me it's probably a deed of trust state because a trustee will accelerate. But this is an acceleration notice, loan agreement breach, subject property. This is in Parma, Idaho. I've redacted all the other information. Blah, 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 blah. You're in violation of section 17. It's usually 17 or 18 is the clause in a mortgage or deed of trust. You have, what's it say? Unauthorized transfer of an interest in subject property without IHFA's prior written consent. And they gave evidence. They gave the conveyance number that's in public record. So they went and found it. And they're saying, hey, here's the proof. You violated the mortgage. Hence, we are going to, in the event the loan is not paid in full within the notice period, which I think is 30 days, they may invoke remedies permitted, such as foreclosure. Okay? That's a due on sale acceleration, or that is a due on sale. And that's the shark bite everybody's scared of.
Do you have to notify the bank in that instance?
Well, they already know in that
But
instance.
But
But if I buy your house sub-2, no, neither one of us is compelled to tell the bank. I'm not an attorney, but my understanding, after lots of research and study, and I've been doing this for a little over 2 years, and only this. And by the way, when Caleb does something for 2 years, he does it for 14 to 16 hours a day. So give me credit for 4, okay? I drink from a fire hose, and all I do is teach and train people and try to do better deals. So you're not compelled to tell the bank when you do this. In fact, there's this concept, I don't want to get too legal, but there's this concept of efficient breach, which is where it's more efficient for you to breach the contract than to honor the terms. And so if you already bought another house like my Colorado people, it's more efficient financially for them to breach contract and hope everything goes well. By the way, Caleb with an 800 credit score is a great borrower, a great person to be responsible for paying that mortgage. There are pretty unqualified people that you could have sold to as well, but I'm a good risk as far as that bank is concerned. Most of the time, in our experience, they do not accelerate as long as it's being paid. FHA mortgages are a little bit higher risk. Did I answer the question?
yes, sir.
Okay. I love questions. We're going to get to like slide 4.
Already too much to digest. How many slides do you have?
Yeah, how many do I have? I think I got like 36. Oh, yeah. You guys.
Share the PowerPoint with their
Sure, I can share the PowerPoint. I've got a full recording of this where I don't go into so many side quests. I've got a full recording on my YouTube channel, so we'll share that as well. Let me jump. So there's mirror wrap, exact wrap, same name, same thing. There is an equity wrap, which is where if my loan balance is $250 and I sell a house at $350 and with a $50,000 down payment, now my balance is $250 and my buyer's balance is $300. That's a equity wrap. We add equity to the amount that I owe. You can do an equity wrap, you can do a rate wrap, you can do both. So usually we're going to take a 2 or 3 or 4% mortgage and mark it up in rate and dollar amount because we're giving an opportunity, let's use that verbiage, we're giving opportunities as investors to other home buyers who couldn't otherwise buy a house. So they will pay a premium for that. Can you imagine saving and having $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 in the bank or under your mattress literally and not being able to buy a house still? The pride of home ownership is something that people, they want it. Additionally, contract for deed or land contract is like a subtype of wrap. Now, wrap versus subject to. A wrap is a type of subject to because if there's not an existing loan, you're not wrapping anything around anything. That's just seller finance. Really, HP? Right now? Wow. Okay. A naked sub to is where we don't have a wraparound mortgage. I don't sign a promissory note and mortgage to my seller. I'm not going to say that's completely irresponsible, but that's not the right way to do it, generally. It's more formal. Attorneys, closing attorneys, and random people who know anything about the industry will prefer that you have a wraparound mortgage. Now, wraps do provide security, but they're not magical because if there's no equity in a property, what's it going to auction for? If I owe $300 on a property and it would sell for anywhere from $290 to $310, what's it going to auction for in a foreclosure? $200? Yeah. It's going to go for way less than that. So does it really give my seller any security if I give a wraparound mortgage at the exact same balance? It's a stop-loss measure. They can start a foreclosure to stop any further losses. They can take the credit hit that's in a foreclosure. They can use it to start conversations with the borrower and say, hey, give me a deed. Just deed it back to me, please. Let's not go through all of this. But it gives them solid ground to work from. It's a foundation and a baseline, a firm foundation for them to press against to influence the borrower who's defaulting into doing something more productive or less lossy. But remember, the end result of a foreclosure, naturally, is an auction. And so I want to remind you guys, a lot of people will say, oh, I'll just foreclose and take the house back. That's not a thing. You don't foreclose and take the house back. Taking it back is not part of foreclosure. Okay? Now, a bank can take it back, but that's because they bid their existing amount owed. They didn't take it back. And now if I'm a wraparound investor and I start a foreclosure against somebody, I can't just bid that amount without also paying off the underlying first position note. So that's not really going to happen for most people. Okay? Does that make sense why it's not real security a lot of times?
Clarify your position. If I'm an investor,
Yeah.
okay, the original owner, the person that's being sold to, that's wrapped, can you give names to these people or something?
A, B, and C. All right, let's yeah, I like that. Okay, so let's treat every transaction just like any wholesale transaction. A, B, and C. A is the seller, B is going to be the investor buyer, and C is the wraparound buyer, the owner occupant, the live-in, or it could be another investor who's going to turn it into a rental. Okay, so if I buy from A, if B buys from A and gives a wraparound mortgage back to A, that's the right and ethical thing to do. But again, it's not magic. It's not real financial security against a low auction price compared to what's owed on that. And then you have party like less than A, which is the bank, who has the debt owed. A promised the bank, I promise A, and I sell to C, who promises me. Yeah, I get a little sigh. You can wrap. It's not, I don't like it. It's really, it's unnecessarily complex. A lot of people get too creative, in my opinion. Okay? And so I try to be the voice of reason. When I was with my high school friends, they wanted to do stupid stuff. So did I. But I'm like, hey, can we just put helmets on while we do it? Okay? So we still do stupid stuff, but we do it a little better. I'm pretty sure they're not dead because of me. Okay, I talked about mirror equity and rate wraps. I do have an article. I have a few more QR codes. I have an article and an accompanying video that explains these very easily. If you know a realtor, this is a great page. I got a clean professional website. Somebody said, I've made tens of thousands of dollars off your website. And I'm like, where's my steak dinner, bro? He said he uses it every time. It gives him credibility that creative finance is real, that there's a company that does it, that's reputable, that has a YouTube channel to go with it, and Instagram. Like, this is all I do. And it gives credibility when realtors are looking at that. So the article and video on that page, types of wrap mortgages, easy explanation. I will make the slides available. How much time do I have?
Till 1 second. 20 minutes.
Seconds?
20 minutes.
20 minutes, okay. When do we use them? Pros and cons. There we go. All right. Pros and cons. Pros on this side, cons on this side. I could have labeled that a little better. Now, it keeps, if I'm party B and I'm talking to a seller, I want to honor my word, even if I sell to somebody else who I don't necessarily trust. So a wraparound mortgage allows me to keep my word, to honor my word, because I have a legal, documented, formal promise to pay. It gives me the ability, well, it gives the seller the ability to foreclose on me, and therefore, if I get a wraparound mortgage from my buyer, it gives me the ability to foreclose on them. That's not magic. It costs money. It takes time to foreclose. You can't skip that when you're doing the underwriting. You have to underwrite for that and understand the risk there. It gives legitimacy to my business operation to do formal wrap-around mortgage agreements. Cons, you can easily get too many layers. A to B, B to C, C to D, whatever this stuff stacks up, it goes crazy. So we want to make sure that we're being reasonable. And sometimes a title company will not provide title insurance. I think, what's the F? Fidelity. Fidelity will not do insurance, title insurance on a wrap of a wrap. So title companies that use Fidelity as their title insurance underwriter have had to unwind the first transaction in order to close the second transaction with like a referral fee for the middleman. So those kind of technicalities can burn you. That's why people bring deals to me, because I know what states have different stuff going on. And I don't even know all the things. I just know more than anybody else. When are reps best? Most of the time. Let's just go with that, okay? It's the ethical way to do business. It's the better way to do it. When you're doing a sub-2 deal, generally you should be wrapping. Plan on that unless there's a strong and ethical reason not to do it that way. When would I not use a wrap? Except for Texas. Let's just put Texas out of the picture. Anytime there's a VA loan, I'm going to go for a contract for deed. I can send you guys a PDF. The VA has guidance for lenders that they do not consider it a disposition if title doesn't transfer. So things like a contract for deed or land contract where title doesn't transfer to the buyer do not violate the due on sale clause. Even if the mortgage has a clause that says a contract for deed is a violation, the VA's guidance overrides and says the lender doesn't have permission to accelerate based on a contract for deed. So anytime somebody's doing a sub-2 or a wrap in any state but Texas, I'm going to ask, why in the world are you not doing that as a contract for deed? It basically eliminates the risk of due on sale. Huge. People didn't know that until I read the paperwork and figured it out. I discussed some of that. I mentioned, I'm going to rock and roll through some of this. Borrowers, you don't just pick a rando and say, yeah, I'll seller finance this to you. You should still use, do you guys know what an RMLO is? Are you an RMLO?
Loan officer, or non-originator.
Yeah. Is it a registered or is it a residential loan, RM, mortgage, loan, officer, or originator? We're butchering it, but it's RMLO. Look up RMLO.
I think it's residential.
If you're only doing one of these in a given year, you're probably fine to just pick some rando and do it. I don't recommend that. But if you're doing this as a business model, you need to use an RMLO, a third-party licensed person, to underwrite the borrower, and then you can make an informed risk decision on whether or not to lend to them. By the way, if you want to sell wraparound notes to somebody else, to a note investor, you can do that. If you're getting a mortgage from somebody, a promissory note and deed of trust, that might be worth something to somebody else. So if you've done an equity markup, you can step out. You can cash out. But it's going to be worth more to them if you underwrote the borrower. It's also going to be required by law if you're doing more than either 1 or 3 per year. I would do it every time anyway. So use an RMLO. Oh, this is good. This is my favorite piece. The 4 rules of wraps. Conceptually, I want you to internalize these concepts. A wraparound, if I do a bear hug and my arms aren't bigger than the person, how can I hug them? If I got T-Rex arms, I can't hug anybody. The wraparound mortgage has to be as big or bigger than the target mortgage. So, timeline. My wraparound mortgage cannot have a 25-year term when there's 28 years left on the remaining underlying debt, on the existing mortgage, okay? Timeline has to be same or longer.
Are you B? Are you hugging A?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Who is this?
Okay, so the bank loan here, let's do this. A picture's worth 1,000 words. Okay, so the original mortgage is this big. Can we read that, 200K? My wraparound mortgage must be at least exactly the same or bigger in balance, interest rate, timeline, etc. Just that concept of it has to be bigger, same or bigger than the existing debt. Now, can they then sell on wraparound financing? Yes, that's where we get crazy. We try to avoid crazy, but you can wrap as much as you want to do that. But can whoever owns the house has the right to sell the house. If they sell it,
B's wrapping A, C's wrapping B.
anybody who owns the house can sell it on seller finance. So if I sold it to somebody else and they gave me a mortgage, they can sell it on wraparound financing if they find a willing buyer. I'm going to put a due on sale clause in my mortgage too. I'm not against the due on sale clause. It's a good thing for lenders to have the ability to accelerate based on a technical violation. So timeline, balance, terms, everything has to be the same or bigger on any wraparound mortgage itself. And generally the monthly payments should be larger on your same or larger, but preferably larger. If you find yourself in a situation where the wraparound mortgage payment is less than the underlying debt, stop what you're doing. Something is wrong. Do not pass go. Do not collect your $100. Stop and call me. You've done some math wrong. Don't do that deal. Best practices, if you're doing this, I would say get a personal guarantee. I don't see any reason not to. It just makes it a little stronger. Some things I'm not going to use legally in court, for example, but they roll up real nice like a newspaper to whack somebody in the head with. Certain terms and conditions in a mortgage. If I've got a due on sale clause, do I want to accelerate if it's not going to get me paid, or if it's going to result in a foreclosure that ends up owing more than, or that doesn't satisfy the full debt? No, but my borrower may not understand that. And so if I can roll it up and say, bad dog, pay me, or deed it back to me, or let's do something other than make it go to foreclosure. It's nice to have the clause in there, right? I just want negotiation power here. Also, understand the timeline and cost to foreclose. Don't just jump into one of these. They're a great way to make money, but if you're making $100 a month on a wraparound mortgage sale, it's probably not going to be worth the risk to you middlemaning that. Another thing, have a payment flow diagram. This is a diagram for a buyer. I have John Smith or their LLC or whatever. They're paying $2,040 a month to my loan servicer, which is One Point Lending. That's the one I'm using preferably right now. Then I do a breakdown, and I take it from One Point. They're going to send $200 to taxes and insurance, or reserve it into impounds or escrow. Okay? We want to make sure that the buyer understands this when they do it. So a picture's worth 1,000 words. The next $1,800 goes to the seller, me, party B. I'm selling to party C, and I'm going to show them this diagram. This is party B. Hey, I'm going to pull in $1,800 a month on seller finance. You pay the bank $200 for, that's probably a really low number for taxes and insurance, but bear with me. And then $40 is the monthly account servicing fee. That accounts for the entire payment. Now that buyer knows that when they pay this money, it gets split to these 3 locations. That accounts for their full PITI. And if there's HOA, throw HOA in there. Okay? Now, for the investor, we add 1 box because we have 1,000 going to the mortgage company, 200 going to the escrow account for taxes and insurance, $40 for the loan processing, loan servicing, and then $800 was my markup. And so I get to see, as the investor, party B, where all that payment flows as well. That picture will solve a lot of problems and confusion when people are having discussions about where does this go? And if you sell on a wraparound mortgage and you tell them what the PI is, the principal and interest, and make the sale based on what they can afford for principal and interest, I'm going to say try not to be a douchebag, because they're uneducated. Those home buyers, they're focused on what the dollar amount is. And if you're only giving them PI and not telling their full monthly expense, they're making a decision that's underinformed. Don't be a dirtbag. This diagram helps solve that problem. FYI, little tips from the field. When I do or see a sub-2 deal, most of the time I see closing costs, cash to close, 30 to 60K. Heavy focus in the 40 range. That includes wholesale fees, closing costs, cash to seller, cash to whoever. That's how much it costs to acquire one of these deals. And then you should still have money in the bank to carry monthly expenses while you try to get it sold. Also, if you're trying to do one of these, if you're trying to buy a sub-2 deal, you need to have carrying costs. It easily takes 6 months to sell wraparound mortgages. They're problem properties. One of the other problems is your buyers don't know that they can buy. A lot of wraparound mortgage buyers, party Cs, the owner occupants, they don't know that they're qualified or that they would qualify to buy a house. And so they're looking for something to rent. Maybe your best location to list it is as a rental, and every time somebody applies, you call them and say, hey, do you have any cash in the bank? Would you like to buy it on seller finance? Maybe that's a better way to connect than listing it on Zillow as seller finance. Depends on what state. If you got into it for 40K and you want all that 40K back when you sell it, that reduces your buyer pool. The larger your required down payment, the fewer people can be your buyers. And so I see people jumping into these deals and they're like, okay, my closing costs are going to be $55K. I'm going to get a $60K down payment from my buyer, so I make $5,000 at close of escrow when I sell it. And I'm going to do that like a month after I buy it. And I'm going to mark the interest rate from 4 to 10%. And I'm like, these are people in Texas a lot of times where the property taxes will kill you. Golly. And I'm like, you can't just mark from 4% to 10% interest. It's the affordability. Start from the affordability of your buyer and work backwards. If they can afford $2,800 a month, great. And it costs you $2,000 a month, great. You can make $800, but you have to build a mortgage that results in a monthly payment of $2,800 because that's what they can afford. It's very easy to work backwards. Use an RMLO. I don't know. We're going to run out of time here. There's the SAFE Act that applies, the Dodd-Frank Act, the RESPA, Truth in Lending Act will apply, bunch of nerd stuff. We'll get to that when you bring me a deal. Deed of trust versus mortgage states. Does everybody understand the difference? Judicial foreclosure in a mortgage state means you have to go to court and get a court order authorizing you to foreclose. Kansas, I'm talking to you. Missouri, deed of trust state. You can move to foreclose based on notices given, like a failure to pay, notices given, and move to trust to auction without necessarily having to go to court for that. Some states have both. The step overall, just so you're familiar with it, you got to send notices of default. You have to notify them that you're accelerating the debt because they're in default. In a mortgage state, you have to get the judgment in order to move forward with the foreclosure. You do the foreclosure sale. If there's a deficiency judgment, that comes into play. Some states do deficiency judgment. That means if it auctions for $200 and I owed $250, then the bank still can get a judgment against me individually for the deficiency of $50,000, which can follow me around for who knows how long until I happen to get an inheritance or sell another house and make some money.
Wraparound mortgage available for even the court auction properties? I don't think they allow the wraparound mortgage. Right?
Say again?
If you have a court auction going around, foreclosure, some kind of an auction going on the same.
Yeah.
In that case, you can do a wraparound mortgage on that property.
If it's being auctioned, they're not going to let you.
Yeah, they don't. So I heard you say auction or something somewhere.
If you're foreclosing, it's going to go to auction.
Foreclosing, even if in case,
And you can foreclose from second position.
So even if in case it goes into foreclosure, can you do a wraparound at that stage? No.
No, you have to bring it out of foreclosure. We've rescued deals from foreclosure, reinstated the mortgage, and then done a wraparound deal.
Then it's
But you have
do a reinstatement.
Yeah, you can get a reinstatement. Depends on what state you're in. Like Colorado, you have to send a notice of intent to reinstate, and then you have a certain timeline to reinstate and send them the money, and then the mortgage is back in good standing. If you violate a mortgage, you have a right to cure it. If you're the borrower, you have a legal right to cure. So if they notice a default and they send you a notice and a cure notice, then they can't not let you cure that default. So we help people reinstate mortgages all the time, delay auctions, etc. Note, word to the wise, during the foreclosure process, you're still going to have to carry payments. If you're party B and you promised party A that you're going to take care of their credit, you still have to be making payments during this time. That's a rough spot to be in. So underwrite your borrowers, be careful. You need to do this the right way. A lot of people go willy-nilly, and I'm not up for that.
Especially when they sell it to someone else who doesn't make the payment.
That's right, because you're stuck in that deal, which is one reason I like contract for deed, because it gives me a little bit more power. In the contract for deed or land contract, in many states, not all, you have what's called a forfeiture. Instead of so if you have that option in your contract for deed, you can actually just take the money that they paid you for a down payment, chuck it back at them. I mean, I'm oversimplifying, but give them back whatever their equity in the house is and say it's more like an eviction, and you kick them out. And that's where you take the house back. Deed in lieu of foreclosure. Please don't get a pre-signed deed in lieu of foreclosure. I think I have a video link. This one's not my favorite video, but it's valid if you have somebody who's pressing for a pre-signed deed in lieu of foreclosure. That is a circumvention of due process of law. There's a foreclosure process for a reason. You can't just skip it, especially when an owner-occupant is involved. The federal government does not like professionals and businesses jacking with the American homeowner. Don't do that. You can do cash for keys. It feels wrong to pay somebody cash in hand when they're the one who's been defaulting and irresponsible. But when you look at the timeline for a foreclosure, the costs involved, and if you're party B stuck in the middle of a deal that has little or no equity, it may be cheapest and fastest. In fact, it probably will be for you to take maybe a slight loss here, throw some cash at them and say, just give me the property back, please. Deed it back to me, here's some cash, go live your life, don't talk to me again, let's get past this.
What about deed in lieu of foreclosures that are signed or pre-signed for investors or someone that's loaning an investor money?
It's for a deed in lieu. So question, what about a deed in lieu of foreclosure that's pre-signed for an investor sale? If I'm financing to a business. Sure. I'm still going to take the same position. It's going to be, the court would be less voracious about enforcement, right? But you're still circumventing the due process of law. If they want to press the issue and take it to court, you probably wouldn't stand up. You probably wouldn't win. Now, if somebody got a pre-signed deed in lieu of foreclosure, remember my newspaper trick? I'm going to roll it up and beat them in the head and say, I can take this property back. I'm never going to record that thing, but I can still remind them strongly and then try to get them to sign a fresh one. If they're in the foreclosure process or if they're in default and they sign one that's relevant to the timeline and circumstances, what's going on, that's a valid deed in lieu of foreclosure. It's a quick claim back to me. It's a warranty deed back to me, whatever it is. Try to get a fresh one signed at the time of the default. That's going to be valid. But the one that they signed 6 months ago, 2 years ago, no good.
So the equity that the original owner would obtain is more or less turned over to the individual holding the most recent note?
No, not if the deed goes to the buyer. If you sell in a contract for deed, well, no, the same applies. If I'm the buyer, any equity gains go to me. So if it does go to auction and there is surplus after the sale, rare case, then it would be, that surplus would go to the person who defaulted because that was the equity above the auction price.
Like Fedwater or something, but then in the event the original owner does have equity and they want to sell the property, you've got first rights to it and they don't.
The first owner? The original borrower? They already sold it. They can't resell. If they sold it to me, they don't have the right to sell it or cause anything else to happen with the property.
So that they've been washed of that, even though they still hold the original lien on credit?
Yep.
So, on the same topic, just kind of getting a little bit closer to understanding, if in case something like a wraparound mortgage taken kind of an alternative, in which case the seller would not have a foreclosure on his credit, or he will still have a foreclosure on his credit?
If it goes to foreclosure, the original borrower will have a foreclosure on their record if that loan is in default, if that's what's being foreclosed.
But
Now,
if in case you come back and kind of resurrect that and try to send me across the wraparound thing, then in that case, the money has been paid, so that record is going to be expunged from the credit, or it's still going to
I don't know if it's expunged. Like if you go into foreclosure and it doesn't complete, it still hurts your credit. It's just not a recorded sale. By the way, I can keep the seller's mortgage in good standing even while I foreclose from second position as party B on a defaulting party C. Okay, so I can still honor my promise to them, to my own financial losses in that case, because I'm the one that took the risk on the other borrower. And so they don't have to have a foreclosure on their record. They don't have to have late payments, because I'm going to make sure that that gets done right.
So if you sell it to party C, don't you have to let party A know you did that?
Not necessarily. It's a good idea.
That's the whole contract. That's my understanding of the Kansas contract.
Oh yeah, for sure, with the contract for deed
The
act.
reason they're putting that in place is because people were buying contract for deed over here with like B buying from A, and then B was going and selling to C. Then C was defaulting, A was getting screwed. Never knew that it got sold to party C.
And B was dishonorable.
B
And
was like, "Yep, see ya."
sorry about it.
So
Yeah.
that's was my understanding. It was just supposed to be more, hey, everybody's got to know what's going on. Like,
I agree.
hey,
I agree with
I'm
that position.
I'm selling it to C, and I verified they're a good borrower and whatever.
Yep. So
Just more disclosure to everyone involved.
legally, that's not required in all states.
Okay.
Ethically, I push for that, and I'll turn down a client that is like, no, they don't need to. They never need to know about that. No, they do. We're pretty much out of time, so let's see what else.
There's another group that comes in after us.
Yeah.
We can move to that side of the room.
I'm good for Q&A, to talk with you guys, etc. If you like this, help me out. Give me a Google review. That's the second one. Give me a Google review, because I'm telling you, it gives me legitimacy with agents and other people who have doubts about creative finance. So thank you.
All right, let's give it up. Wow, you're a sharp guy. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Knows his stuff. Okay, so we'll have to have him back, boss.
That was really good.